I'm in a Michigan quarter zip cart. It's been a while since I've felt compelled to wear something Michigan in my house. Call me a fair weather fan, whatever you want. That's fine. There's a little energy in my household as far as my Michigan basketball fandom goes. This morning, we got a commitment over the weekend. That would be Aaliya. I believe that's actually how you say it, not Aaliya. But again, I'm just going to botch that this whole episode. Argentinian forward / center. Really like his game. We talked about his game last week. I'll actually give you credit. You were very objective and said a lot of nice things about him based on the tape that you saw. In fact, when we went to clip that after he committed, it was all you talking and saying nice things about Aaliya. So that makes me feel good. But not only is he now in a Michigan uniform, his commitment has opened the door for something else to happen here. So let's start with Aaliya. This might just be repeating what we said the other day, but now that he's a Michigan commit, has your opinion of Michigan as a team changed at all with Aaliya in the fold?
See, so this is where I think it separates, and this is where I don't think I made it known how I felt about this. Aaliya, the player, I'm very much in on. Like, I think he's he'll be a good college basketball player. And I've seen enough people mention that he could one day be an NBA player. I see it, like the skill set's there, so I could see that happening eventually. Not sure if it'll be later or quicker or like when it'll happen, but I could see it happening. Still, though, as you know, we're a podcast that prides ourselves on roster fit. I don't know how he necessarily fits into this roster. It just seems to be a kind of a conglomerate of fours, to be honest. So yes, it's a little bit clunky as far as roster fit, and I don't know how he'll necessarily be used. But getting a player of that caliber this late in the cycle, it's an automatic take. You don't think about it. If he wants to come, you take him. Obviously, he has talent, and you figure out what you're going to do with the roster. But Juwan's going to have some things to figure out. He's going to have to push the right buttons. And speaking for me personally, I've never seen Juwan as a guy who's like a push the right buttons type of guy. He's more so a get talent type guy. You might feel differently about that, but yeah, I think it's a good ad. It's a must take. It's something that all Michigan fans should be happy about. I will say that at the end of the day, Michigan fans should be happy about it. You should wipe the dust off your quarter zips and throw them back on. You can be proud now. But I'm very interested to see how this fits because, when you talk to most Michigan fans, the first thing they say is that, oh, we're good. We're going to play all those guys and then play Trey Jackson at the 3. And that just makes me want to put you down with Nebraska and Minnesota at the Big Ten, if that's going to be the mindset. So hopefully that's not the mindset of Michigan staff, but I'm not sure if you feel the same.
Yeah, a couple things. I think that getting talent is pushing a button. Like you say, he hasn't been good at pushing the buttons.
I meant more so pushing the buttons as far as with when he has the roster, like getting the most out of his rosters.
I'm not here to argue that he didn't get the most out of last year's roster, and you could say the same thing about the year before. Although again, when it mattered most at the end of the year, he definitely got the most out of that roster. So I think it's very fair to say like there's many different ways to build a good college basketball team. Like coaches do it differently. The best coaches in the world can do all the ways. Juwan Howard's not the best coach in the world. Surprise, surprise. But do I know that Juwan Howard can build good teams? Yes, he can. We have seen him do that before. Let's not say we haven't seen Michigan be good under Juwan Howard. It has happened before, and it happened because he pushed the button to get Mike Smith and Sean D. Brown and play big roles on a team that had to fill some gaps. This year's team, I like the makings of in a lot of ways, but you called out their biggest red flag. It's that they don't have a starting small forward, and they're going to try and play Trey Jackson there, and it's going to be an abject disaster. And I'm the only Michigan fan, I think, that's willing to say that. And if you want to call that hate, fine. I call it objectivity. We have 4 years of Trey Jackson's career on paper now of bad basketball. Like those are the results of Trey Jackson's career under 4 different coaches and now 3 different programs. He's been a bad basketball player. So if Michigan's plan is to start him at a position he's never played and play him 30 minutes, I don't think that's going to go well. But here's the thing, though. A couple things. One, I don't know for sure that that's going to be the end result. That might be the starting lineup on day one of the season, Cart. I don't think I would bet on Trey Jackson being the starting small forward at the end of the year. I think there's at least multiple candidates for them to avoid this and get around that. Two, if we just forget about small forward, which you can't do, I know that, but if we just forget about that position and we just look at Doug McDaniel and Namari Burnett and Kamwa and Reed and now Aaliya, throw him into that fold of a core of guys who, other than Kamwa, Doug, Namari, Reed, Aaliya, all have multiple years left at Michigan. Suddenly that looks like a foundation of a good team, right? Like if there wasn't a gaping hole at the 3, I think that's the foundation of a really good basketball team in the Big Ten. Maybe not a national title contender, but like a top tier team in the Big Ten if they just had a good small forward.
Yeah, so a couple things for me, because I could see this also. This is the first thing that came to my mind. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on it. Is there a world where Aaliya takes over Terrace's spot? And let's say Aaliya has a really good year, like a year that gets him on the draft boards, he leaves in the first round pick, but Terrace is upset and you lose Terrace. Is that not something that happens? Because that's where my mind went to immediately when you got him.
I don't think that's the case. Look, I can obviously be wrong, and I'm a body language PhD guy. I'll call it out if I see it coming. I don't think Terrace is wired that way. Like, first of all, Terrace committed to Michigan when Hunter Dickinson, in theory, had 2 years left at Michigan. So I don't think he was worried about that necessarily right away. And two, I think Terrace Reed is better than Aaliya right now. I think Aaliyah's trajectory at Michigan is much more a year 2 breakout guy than it is a year 1 he overtakes somebody in the starting lineup. Like he's going to take Kamwa's spot after Kamwa leaves, probably be really good, and be a sophomore leap guy that suddenly might be on the NBA radar in 24 months.
Is Llewellyn like healthy?
Nobody knows.
Because like in a world if I'm have my Juwan quarter zip on, I'm throwing Doug, Llewellyn, Namari, and Kamwa and Terrace as my 5.
Yeah, that's an option for sure.
And and Llewellyn might actually be, we always talk. Obviously, he was hurt last year, so it didn't happen. But like year 2 up transfers.
Yeah, he was
our position.
He was so stinky before he got hurt, though, is the problem. But look, last summer, again, I put no stock in this whatsoever. I think I'm the biggest Llewellyn hating Michigan fan there is. Last summer, he was the best player on their overseas trip. Like I saw footage of it. I saw the box scores. Maybe that's why you should throw out overseas results. But he on a team with Jet Howard, Kobe Buffkin, and Hunter Dickinson, Jalen Llewellyn was the best player for 3 games overseas. Whatever he had there did not translate when November came around, and then he got hurt. So we have to see. But like I said, there's options, right? Because you basically have a bunch of wild cards that you just need one of them to hit. And then I think Michigan's legit a good team if one of these 4 things happens. If Llewellyn's healthy and good, and you can start 3 guards, there you go. Your team's good. If Yusuf Kayat breaks out, not saying it's going to happen, but wouldn't be the first time we've seen a guy who didn't crack a rotation as a freshman be a star as a sophomore at Michigan. There's still flashes of things to like upside-wise with Kayat. Number 3, if George Washington III is like a playable 25 minutes a game guy. Don't need him to be a superstar. I know you're smirking at that. But like, well, you did. But like, if let's just say GW3 is a 40% shooter from 3. Like at bare minimum, he's a good shooter. Can't you get away with him just being the 3 guard or putting Namari at the 3 and having him play the 2? Can you get like super watered down Fletcher Lawyer minutes from GW3?
Is Michigan's starting backcourt next season? Doug and George Washington, both those guys are so tiny.
He's not small at all. He's not small.
George Washington?
Do you think he's like 5'11"?
He's 6 foot, maybe.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. He's taller than that. You can research that. I'm not even going to dignify that with researching that because I know you're wrong on that. And then, 4, wild card number 4 is the one that I'm least confident in, Cart, but it's Trey Jackson being good. I think he's bad, but if Trey Jackson is good, then, but don't you think, like, what would you say if you're building a parlay, back to our parlay?
6'1", by the way.
Yeah, that's not 6 foot. If you're building a parlay or whatever you call it, Of those four options, what's the percentage chance one of those four hits?
Out of what? Doug, Namari,
Yeah.
George?
Doug, Namari. Well, no, because it wouldn't be Namari. Namari we're counting as good. It would
Okay.
be out of Llewellyn being starter level good, George Washington III being starter level good, Yusuf Kaya being starter level good, Trey Jackson being starter level good.
I won.
Huh?
One of them.
What's the percent chance though? Like, because I'm not asking you to pick which one you like the most. They only need one. I'm just saying, like, is it greater than 50% that one of those four guys is a good starter? I
Oh
think it
yeah,
is. I
yeah,
think it
yeah, yeah.
is.
Just one of them, right?
Yeah, you only need
Yeah,
one. You don't,
yeah.
that's the thing is Michigan is now in a spot where you like everything else on their roster enough. You only need one of those four lottery tickets to hit. You don't need three, you don't need two, you don't need four. You need one. And if one of those four is a starter, this team's really good on paper.
Define really good.
Three-man weave had him 23rd, I think, in their countdown. Some of them voted him that high.
For real?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jimothy.
Actually,
God,
I
mad.
that might not have been where they ended, but I know two of them had them like top in the 20s. Jim had them a lot lower.
Okay. Having them in 25s and top 25, that's malpractice.
If one of those four guys is good, I don't think it is because the other four are good. Doug, Namari, Kamwa, Reed, Aaliya are good. It's true. Can we pivot this to what I think this means, though? The more interesting part of this to me.
Please.
So as we've just discussed, there's a massive hole at one position for Michigan, right? Small forward, bad, wide open. Nobody knows. If only there was a recruit who was back in recruitments, opening his recruitments, because he wants to play at a school where there's no competition at his position. And oh, by the way, his position just so happens to be small forward. Interesting. If only, Cart, if only that recruit had ties to the country of Argentina, which I don't know if you know this, Cart, is where Michigan's latest commit, Aaliya, is from. If I was going to go conspiracy mode, just like if I had like a top hat and mustache on, one would say there is no better situation for what Marcus Adams wants than what Michigan could offer him right now. Marcus Adams, top 50 recruit, committed to Kansas, decommitted from Kansas, committed to Gonzaga, decommitted from Gonzaga. Nobody knows if he can play this year. He needs to get a waiver in order to do so. Regardless, if he committed to Michigan, he would be the most talented wing on this roster without a question. And I think, Cart, there's a real chance this could happen. I really do.
Well, I just missed the days when four competitors only was a thing. Isn't that the mantra?
It's the fake mantra.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, we don't like
Okay.
competition.
Oh, we do not like competitors.
No.
Greg, I gotta say this, and I always come on here. Obviously, I give credit where credit's due to Michigan recruits and Michigan players in that regard. Marcus Adams doesn't do it for me. Maybe you got to send me something where I see it. I just don't think he's that great, to be honest.
I think Kansas's staff would agree with you. The rumblings that came out were not that they were upset about that loss. That was more of a
also, at least from what I've seen, is he 6'6"?
Yeah, I think.
He strikes me as a guy who would be more utilized as like being a college small ball four instead of a three.
Perfect.
I don't know. I wasn't that impressed with what I saw.
Oh, he'd be best at the four, but he's going to play the three. That's exactly what Juwan Howard wants. It's perfect.
I don't know. He just doesn't. If I'm a Michigan guy, I'd rather throw my eggs in the yo-yo basket than the Marcus Adams Jr. basket.
But wouldn't you rather have the choice? Because it's basically a no risk proposition for Michigan. Now, I'm not saying Marcus Adams is going to be a slam dunk good college player. In fact, I'm saying the opposite of that. There's disaster potential with him, no doubt. Kansas essentially didn't want him anymore, thought he couldn't cut it. Then he goes to Gonzaga on a team where, yeah, they have more dudes than Michigan does. I don't think Gonzaga has a ton of great wings. Like Dusty Stromer is their best wing, and a couple couple other like Dusty Stromer-esque guys, like Marcus Adams didn't want to compete with those guys. I don't know. That's a little scary for a top 50 guy who's afraid of those guys. But Michigan doesn't have anything. Like, that's the point here, is that if Yusuf Kayat is the only small forward on the roster, no offense to Yo-Yo, there is no competition. There's nothing. There's no one you would need to worry about if you're Marcus Adams. And supposedly that's what Marcus Adams wants. Now, you can flip this and say Marcus Adams is delusional and he might be a toxic personality and he's not a guy you'd want in your locker room. To which I say, yeah, that's probably accurate. To which I also say, this is the same coaching staff that was willing to risk their entire tenure on Caleb Love 3 months ago. Like, we are not in a position as Michigan basketball to turn down guys who might be toxic locker room guys because we're going to start Trey Jackson at the 3. No, like, we need talent. That's still what Michigan needs. And look, he's not a season savior. He wouldn't come in and be like an all-conference guy, nothing like that. He might not even play in year one. But that 2-year and on core that I just talked about, that I think is genuinely really good. Doug McDaniel, Terrace Reed, Aaliya, Namari Burnett. That's the guys you're working with. If you threw Marcus Adams in that group, suddenly I think there's a lot to like for the next 2 years of Michigan basketball. So I think they're going to be a factor.
Is Jason that core?
No, he's not.
Cheddar?
No, he's not.
COVID year Terrence Williams?
No, he's not. You want to keep going down the list? There's a lot of guys that I don't consider part of the core of Michigan basketball. Last thing. Do you think Michigan actually makes a phone call here? Do you think they're actually interested?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think they have a real shot? Because I think if they're interested, they have a great shot.
I do because I think that at this point, because I don't think there's anybody really interested in him. So I think if someone shows interest.
The guy had Bill Self and Mark Few in the same offseason, and now nobody wants him?
Well, I think I would read the writing on the wall if I'm any coach. If they didn't want him, why would I want him?
Okay. All right.
If two coaching grades did not want him, why would I want him?
I think Michigan has a great chance here. Also, I don't think Mark Few didn't want him. I think Marcus Adams didn't want Mark Few. I think it was the opposite for Kansas. But final Michigan question for me, what would you, if this was their 13 guys end up being Aaliya and Marcus Adams. Those are last minute, end of August, early September ads. What would you give Juwan Howard as like a roster builder based on those moves this offseason? That would mean their transfer class, after all the NBA guys left, after Hunter abandoned them, what he would have done is gone out and got Olivier Kamwa, Namari Burnett, Trey Jackson, Aaliya, and Marcus Adams.
Probably like a B.
Okay.
B, yeah. I think a lot of that B is in Kamwa, Namari, Aaliya.
Okay. I would feel a lot better about it if Marcus Adams was in the fold. I would just say that. Let's move on.